Hello and welcome to India Today SoSouth. I'm Gautam Shankar. Now, the Churalmala and Mudakai region, a popular tourist area located in the Mepadi region of Wayanad district, has been devastated by a series of landslides. Over 250 lives have been lost, and the death toll is expected to rise as rescuers search through the debris in the coming days. Now, the question that we are looking to answer is, could this tragedy have been averted? And the bigger questions are, is this a man-made disaster or a natural calamity? Now, to understand more on this, I'm joined in by two guests, HMS Prakash, a well-known geologist from Karnataka, and S. Faizi, an ecologist from Kerala. Thank you for joining us on the show on India Today, SoSouth, the both of you, sir. So, from your reading here, Mr. Faizi, I just want to come to you first. What do you make of it? Is it more of a man-made disaster or a natural calamity that could have been avoided?
It's a man-made disaster. It's a man-made disaster in the sense that this is the impact of a process that has been going on for more than 100 years or so. Started with the Industrial Revolution, 1850 to 1900. So this has been warming the ambient temperature by discharging warming gases into the atmosphere. And today, the world is desperately trying to wriggle out of it, and therefore it's a man-made disaster. But I would also say that it's not a man-made disaster, but it's a corporate-made disaster in the sense that the people who are directly responsible for discharging carbon dioxide into the atmosphere in huge volumes, they constitute only 1% of the global population. But the victims are always the poor and the marginal classes, as happened in Wayanad. And also, there is a differential rates of contribution among countries. The average per capita carbon dioxide emission of a US citizen is 10 times higher than the Indian average carbon dioxide emission. It's in India, I think it's somewhere 1.7 tons per head, whereas in the US it is 16 tons per head. But India is also increasing its share. But within the country also there is a huge disparity, between the people who can afford to live in a 27-story house and people who live in small little huts and tiny houses, as in Wayanad. So the impact of this is being played out repeatedly in a state like Kerala, especially that is placed between the Western Ghats mountains on the one side and the Arabian Sea on the other side. So was the calamity in 2018. It was even more disastrous. That covered a larger part of the state. And here now you have in this place the rainfall on that fateful day in the early morning. And if you look at the 24-hour rainfall before that, it was an unbelievable 270 millimeter. And when
Sorry for the correction. 570 millimeters.
Sorry?
570 millimeters. Correction, please.
570 is for 48 hours.
Okay.
If you count the 2 days, it was that figure. But immediately following the 24 hours, immediately prior to that was 270. But actually, I wouldn't, it is certainly not 500 plus, but this 298 is also not very clear because our meteorology agencies, including the IMD, have not come out with a clear data information when this crisis is happening. And so is the state government agencies. It's not only IMD, and it's very hard to also access the data that they have. You want to say something?
All right.
So
Faizi sir, I want to get into that because we know that the weather systems are not in place that with accurate forecasting. But before we get to that as well, and also I've read your Facebook post as well. I want to discuss all of that. So before we do that, I just want to bring in HMS Prakash as well because you are someone who studied the Western Ghats very closely. So Prakash sir, Faizi sir is of the opinion that this is more of a corporate disaster. So, what do you make of the whole tragedy that is playing out in Wayanad right now?
Good morning, both of you. In fact, the tragedy is very touching, and I am yet to come out of the deluge of 2018 and 19. Coorg and Kerala put together. It was a national disaster for 2 years, and 2018 incident touched my heart. And as a scientist, I wanted to find out the cause for such effects geologically. I went into geological literature, and this morning I was watching the proceedings of the parliament. Mr. Amit Shah has told categorically that 7 days before, warning was given to the state government, but it was ignored. No action has been taken. As Mr. Shaiji told, it is partly human made and partly it is natural also. And okay, because of the resorts, India's largest resort is there in that area, Mepadi area, and a lot of people, especially southward people, go there to relax. Number of resorts are there, homestays are there, Ayurvedic centers are there. Tourism point of view, it has become a destination, and in the process, they have disturbed the soil profiles there, and enough deforestation has also taken place. All put together, ecological point of view, damage has been done. There's a human intervention, and this may augment or enhance the incident event. But even without that, this incident would have taken place, this event would have taken place, because Mr. Shaiji may recall that in 1924, a huge tragedy was there in Kerala and Kodagu. And that time there was no CO2, there was no factory, there was no vehicular emission. And when we go back in historical geological times, say we have got a branch called paleoclimate, and we understand that even 1,000 years ago, a lakh years ago, crore years ago, climate disasters were there, catastrophes were there. When there was no human being, there were great tragedies which are on recorded in the rock layers. So, so there must be some natural reason other than CO2. I have gone into this aspect very deeply. I have read all the reports of IPCC, 4 reports and the final report, and I am following the COP Paris, and before that also 26, 27, 28 especially. And I would like to say that after 28, there is a change in the tagline of the COP and IPCC. Now they are not talking of carbon taxation, carbon capturing, carbon sequestration, and now they are talking of climate resilient agriculture. There's a change in the tagline, and they have been opposed by a certain group of scientists, especially earth scientists. And in the IPCC, there was no earth science representation. So, without knowing the geological perspective, many theories have been floated, and greenhouse effect and the global warming and all these things have been proved to be fake theories. And it has been rejected all over. That Greta Thunberg and all others have gone to the background now. What is coming to the foreground is geological perspective or geological truth about climate change. The
All
truth
right.
is,
On that line, HMS Prakash, I just want to bring in Mr. Faizi as well. Faizi, you wanted
yeah,
to add something here to what HMS Prakash had to say?
first of all, if the debate is about whether climate change is a fact or a fiction, I'm not into that debate. I'm not
Besides the
into that
point.
debate.
But
This
you
has
just make
been
your one because
discussed.
you've spoken. I've seen your post on Facebook as well. Because you have said that we should not, the attention should not be diverted away from the central cause, which is climate change. And you also said that Men like Madhav Gadgil could have waited for a couple of days before coming out with unfounded statements and let the government agencies recover the dead and give them burial, and Kerala can raise also claim as well. So that is the point I really want to discuss with you, Mr. Faizi,
Yeah.
because the
The
Gadgil report is back in focus. What do you have to say about this now?
the issue is IPCC had predicted that the frequency of massive floods will increase. They said that in 2007, and they also repeated that in 2021. And IPCC represent the global scientific community from different disciplines, um, climate climate science, geology, environment, and even economics, and so on. And it also represents the community of nations. All countries are represented, and their reports are also largely consensus based. Now, IPCC has predicted that this frequency will increase, and it is true that, as Dr. Prakash said, we had a huge, massive deluge in 1924. But the point is, this that happens once in a decade or so. Sorry, once in a century or so. But here we had this in 2018, and then now it's repeated. In 2020 also we had localized, and it could also happen. Let's hope it wouldn't, but it's a fact that it is going to happen because the sea temperature, the water temperature is increasing, the surface water temperature is increasing, and the evaporation is quite high, and that is falling as rain here. So whatever things we do on earth, we will have no control whatsoever on the amount of rain that is going to fall. And the spacing of rainfall will also change. June is a month when Wayanad should have been having decent rain, but there was a deficit in the month of June, and then the rain was waiting. The clouds were waiting to come down together heavily in this particular fateful day, preceding the previous day when, as he pointed out, was also raining. So that caused the disaster. And there are also factors. I have seen quarries in many places, and the quarries need to be completely controlled in places where quarries should not be allowed, must not be allowed. There is also a nexus between politicians, bureaucrats, even scientists on quarries, and so on. But that's an entirely different issue. But this rain, this kind of massive rain, massive downpour in very short space of time is beyond our control, and it's the climate change that is being played out. And we should not we should discuss other issues, but without losing focus on the impact of climate change. And if we keep denying this as a result of the climate change, what will happen is, when we try to gather data, information, and perspectives on climate change at the global level, we will be left with no examples. Like this happened in Dubai also, I think sometime in April, and that was a massive rain. It was massive rain alone that caused, and that was exactly another case of the climate change impact being played out.
Okay.
The
Well,
tragedy, the tragedy is very, very massive, and the the point that the home minister made in the parliament was replied by the chief minister, but it is his job to, that is also in the public domain. It is is not my intention to reply on behalf of the chief
All
minister.
right,
well,
all right.
okay,
At this point,
okay.
I'd just like to
Yeah.
bring in HMS Prakash as well. Prakash sir, you earlier were mentioning about Home Minister Amit Shah. He had claimed that early warning systems had warned Kerala government ahead of the tragedy. But what Vijayan is saying is that the forecast issued by IMD and also the Geological Survey of India, which is basically responsible for issuing alerts related to landslides, they were off the mark. So, where do you stand on this, HMS Prakash? Because you work with the geological department and very closely as well. So, could there have been a better warning system here?
Now, you see, when I was in the Ministry of Mines, Shastri Bhavan, we sanctioned 50 crore rupees for, beginning a separate institute for landslide studies all over the country under GSA, of course. Now, many people have been trained, and some people have done PhD in Netherlands on this aspect, and we are able to give warning at least a week before, wherever possible. And this is one instance where the warning was given. I worked as director of landslide division in Bangalore for 1 year. I visited Markara and other Sampaje and other places. I understand the whole phenomena of landslides and also the cause for it. The more important is cause. GSA has given a warning. Suppose there is no such downpour this season, no event at all. The downpour is responsible plus 400, plus 500, plus 600 millimeters within 24 hours or 48 hours, whatever it is, or continuous spells. As I said, if it's a continuous spell for 10 days, 15 days without break, naturally the soil profile gets inundated or saturated or super saturated, and the water that goes in becomes heavy on the profile and it acts as a ball bearing and it acts as a lubricant and the whole slope starts creeping or sliding and the slide is triggered because of the heavy rainfall. So that is the whole thing what is happening in Western Ghats here and also elsewhere. The soil profile is a loose soil. It is lateritic soil, very fine material because of heavy rainfall and deep chemical weathering. Hardly any boulders, compact, massive boulders are there in between, but the whole thing is lateritized. So naturally, when it mixed up with water, whole thing becomes a slush and mud and starts flowing down. Here, in this particular event, I would like to call it a mud flow rather than a landslide. Landslides are, in steeper slopes. Here, it's a moderate slope. At places, it is gentle slope. In Mapadi and other areas, it's a mud flow, massive mud flow. The unfortunate part is we have identified the landslide or mud flow spots, and we know the path also, how it will proceed downwards along some streams, and finally it will reach the valley and end there, dump the material. All along the path, the projected or unexpected path, there should not be any human habitation. Here, unfortunately, 3 villages are there, and naturally, we are preventing the natural flow, and we have to face the music. And this is not the only place where such situations are there. Anywhere in Karnataka, along the Western Ghats, and anywhere in Maharashtra and Kerala, there must be more than 50 or 60 such vulnerable places, likely places. But we have done the assessment. Among the level 3 high warning zones, which is the topmost priority, we have to identify and take action immediately. We give the report to the district administrator and also the state missionary. They simply, read and keep it in the almirah and forget about it. That's not the case. Every report should be taken seriously. Anyway, I will stop here. The two more important aspects are there. What you mentioned about climate change, I've been working on it since 2015. It is not a climate change, it's a climate perturbation. Here and there, now and then, some perturbations are there. Climate change is something drastic and catastrophic, as we have seen in the earlier times. Mass extinctions were there, ice ages were there, little ice ages were there, great famines were there, warm periods were there. These are all the changes. But these are all small perturbances, and this is one district, that to one particular spot, only 3 villages are affected. In 1924, entire state was wiped out. 1951, Sampaja and surrounding area, there was a similar incident. One hillock vanished. Okay, 2010 there was a heavy rain, some problem was there. Now 2018 and 19 great deluge was there. So no doubt these things repeat in time, once in a century or once in half a century. There is no cyclicity, periodicity that we can understand. Fixed cyclicity is not there. Whenever heavy downpour is there, like this 500, 600 millimeter or 700 millimeter in 24 hours or 48 hours, quick precipitation, torrential rains. So these events are responsible for such tragedies anywhere in the
All
world,
right.
whether it's Papua New Guinea or Philippines or Malaysia or Brazil or anywhere. Okay,
HMS Prakash.
now what is the reason? What is the reason for such heavy precipitation? We have to understand that. I am trying to understand the whole gamut of events, and I found since 2018, I am following every day and night, globally and also regionally. India and surrounding areas, there are some great volcanoes, some super volcanoes also in Sumatra, Java.
We'll get to that, HMS Prakash. But right now, I just want to bring the focus back to Madhav Gadgil. So here's one particular quote that I just want to read it out to the audience here. Basically, he says that the Western Ghats as a whole have been devastated. What awaits Kerala is a great tragedy. He says if no action is taken, it won't require decades as you may think. 4 or 5 years is enough. You and me will be alive that day. Then you will realize who was lying. That is the quote. Now, I just want to bring out some details about the Gadgil report itself, because his proposal was basically to say that the entire 75% landscape of Western Ghats should be considered as eco-sensitive zone. And Kasturi Rangan report was also there, which scaled it down and said 37% area should be declared as sensitive area. Now, neither of these were followed. And if they were implemented by the state government and by the union government, could the situation have been different? Could this tragedy have been averted? When I say averted, I mean to say that could we have saved lives? Maybe a landslide is something you cannot really predict or stop completely from happening, but could you have saved lives here? Faize sir, I'd like your take on this.
Okay, I will go into that. But before that, I just wanted to mention the climate change. Climate change is not something local. It's a global process, global phenomenon, global threat as well, and it is totally different from the geological processes like a periodic glaciation between that happens maybe 200 years 2000 sorry 20,000 years 11,000 years. So we have only come out of a glaciation only 11,000 years. And this is climate science is something that is globally accepted by the community of scientists, and I'm not going to into debating that. On Madhu Gadgil's statement, I wish if he had a prescription to prevent this massive deluge rainfall happening in such a short spell of time. And nobody has that technology, except the only solution lies in reducing the carbon dioxide emission into the atmosphere, which is fiercely resisted by the industrial countries and their corporations. And now, as for the committee's recommendations that he was talking about, maybe you have seen how the Aravalli disappearing to maybe people in the audience at least would know that it's very fast, and barely you find mountain in one or two districts of the range area. Most of it is under the ecologically sensitive area notification as per the issued by the Ministry of Environment. Like that, the destruction is happening. So we have seen laws in the country: the Forest Act, the Forest Conservation Act, the Wildlife Act, the Protection Act, Act. We have no dearth laws and no dearth even of implementing agencies, but the issue is no serious implementation is happening. And he also wants to take away the power of the government, the state governments, or even local communities, and create a centralized authority for the management of the Western Ghats. So that is another intrusion into the state powers or local communities' powers. And we have a beautiful legislation in the country created in 2006, the Forest Rights Act. The Forest Rights Act gives back the forest to the people, means the Adivasi people and local communities to manage. And that is actually also in line with the Biodiversity Convention, to which India is also a party. But this report does not even mention in a serious way the implementation, the meaningful, effective implementation of the Forest Rights Act. We have forests still left in the country because the Adivasi people have been protecting it. And the dense forests still in the country are found only in 165 districts that are termed as tribal districts in the country. So giving the forest back, giving the mountains back to its historical custodians is the only effective way to sustainably manage this resource. And saying that if we have not allowed forest destruction, actually I was looking at the data in 2018 when this gentleman was saying that is because of the deforestation in Kerala that happened. And the only source of study that estimates the forest coverage in the country is the Forest Survey of India. So the latest report, they produce reports every 2 years, and the latest report in 2018 was that of 2017. And in the reporting period, the forest coverage in Kerala did not decrease, but increased by more than 1,000 square kilometer. And the wetland areas in this reporting, in this study district, also showed an increase in the decadal period that preceded by something like 15,000 square kilometer. I'm sorry, 15,000. Maybe I made a mistake in the exact figure, but there was a significant increase.
Faizi, I just want to bring in one more report here as well. This is basically a local agency from Kerala. Now, there's an environmental organization that is tracking local weather, and they have flagged that there could be more such landslides that could happen. So, what happens here? Basically, I know that the point you're trying to make is basically give the land back to the original custodians, but that's not going to happen. What is a practical solution that we could look at here to put an end to loss of life, such magnitude of tragedy? How can we avert that? That is the question that I'm trying to get an answer for.
This kind of rain pattern, which does not follow the historical pattern of rains, by changing the intensity of rain and the distribution of rain across several days and several months, that is beyond our control. We have 400 ppm carbon dioxide and carbon equivalents in the air, and that has to be reduced. As long as that stays, not only Kerala but other states also are suffering and will also suffer, other countries as well. So this is a massive global crisis. That's why it's called a climate crisis. And as long as that happens, we will have rains, heavy rains in just 24 hours. And that will flood a huge lot of areas. Whatever we do on the ground, that has to change. But then, of course, we have to manage our own system. We have to manage our forest. We have to manage our land. These unauthorized quarries have to stop. We even have to change our lifestyle. So you need stones for building your house, you need sand, but then we have to change our worldview, we have to change our lifestyle. That is very important. And who are the people who are using these resources? And that's only a very small segment of our population. And who are the people who are suffering in Wayanad? They're all marginal farmers, poor farmers, Adivasis. So the poor will have to bear the burden of the crisis, whereas those who keep polluting, discharging carbon dioxide and associated global warming gases from their lifestyle, they will keep doing that. And remember that the UNFCCC, the Climate Change Convention, has a provision called common but differentiated responsibility. India was exempted from, India and many developing countries were exempted from mandatory carbon dioxide emission reductions in the Kyoto Protocol, because we have to develop. We have a large body of poor people. But then I was one of the people who are arguing, and I was one of the people who introduced this common but differentiated responsibility in the Earth Summit's document on both climate change and also the Rio Declaration final draft. But then, actually, when we look at it domestically, our rich is hiding behind the poor. They're using our poor, huge mass of poor, as a shield in order to escape from mandatory carbon dioxide emission reduction. And that also has to change. So the benefit of this exemption from carbon dioxide mandatory reduction has to reach the entire population of the country. And now we have to, my concern now is that this tragedy has happened. It should not have happened. But now the UNFCCC has established a system for securing compensation for loss and damage that is caused due to global warming. And that we have to take it to the platform of the UNFCCC. These repeated floods, seek compensation. I remember in 2018, it was estimated that suffered 40,000 crore rupees. That's a huge small state like this. And this time also, the estimations are not as yet. This has to also happen. And these things we will have to take it loss and damage fund very soon.
All right, that's a great point you make there, Mr. Fazim, that we could also seek compensation from the United Nations for such a massive tragedy that's happened in Wayanad. So with that, let's just wrap up this discussion here. Basically, we had a geologist having completely opposing views to an environmentalist and an ecologist, Mr. Fazim. But the point being that changes need to happen both from lifestyle and from policy level as well. And that is the only way we can avert such tragedies. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on this discussion on India Today SoSouth.
Thank you. Thank you very much.